All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back to our weekly Two Guys and a Bard. As the title says, Super does not have his child anymore. Heard he sold her off to somewhere.
Jesus, bro, calm down.
No, the child is with the family, is my understanding.
she is with her Mimi.
Mimi. There you go. Well, we've got a show for you guys tonight. It's kind of like right in the middle of this interesting turn of events for Ashes of Creation, right? We've got some combat changes. We've got an extended alpha test. And then it sounds like we have, I don't know, a bunch of downtime, a couple months of, we'll be twiddling our thumbs, wishing we could go back to this month long.
Yeah. That, I think we're going to get there. I think, right now it's like, yeah. And then we're getting to the point of, man, it's late October. If only I could jump into Ashes right now and just run around and kill some animated armors again.
Yeah.
I'm so ready for there to be more content. I'm ready for the content test.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, Thane does need to work on his beard game. But why don't we do the usual question after we make fun of Thane a little bit for having a terrible beard? And go, what's everyone drinking tonight?
All right. I have Biggie's Bodacious Banana Split. It is an Imperial Milk Stout with banana, vanilla, cacao, and sugar.
Here's the thing.
So,
man, I feel like live in California, don't you?
I do. I really do.
I feel like that could be really good, but their title is awful.
No, I think the title... So they have one that's Biggie's Blueberry Brunch Bonanza, which is a blueberry kettle sour that's amazing. So I haven't tried this yet. I'm excited. We're gonna see.
I guess if they're embracing
California, sorry, that's literally the most California shit I've ever heard.
You know you're moving to Colorado, right? It's even worse out here.
I might not be. I might not be now.
Oh really? Oh no.
Crazy.
There's some updates there, but we'll see. We'll see. There's things. There's things are working.
No, I like beers like that. I hate when a beer predominantly is of the flavors rather than tasting like beer. It's like, make it taste like beer and then have hints of those other flavors. When you call it banana split, I'm like, this is like a sweet, overly banana powered thing.
It's just a cooler. It's just a cooler at that point.
It's really good. You don't taste banana much at all. Like a lot of cacao, a lot of milk sugar, a lot of lactose. It's a milk stout. It definitely tastes like a milk stout.
But all right, so yeah, as we were saying earlier, it's interesting.
Well, wait, what are you guys drinking? You can't just put me on the spot.
I was just gonna.
What the hell?
I was just gonna leave you hanging.
Oh, just leave me here.
Fane's drinking the blueberry or the.
Oh, I just want to leave Fane hanging.
Move it on.
I got whiskey and ginger ale tonight
in the big boy glass.
Oh yeah, that's my second one.
The second big boy glass. And I'm drinking my usual. I got a little Manhattan here. I made with our single malt. Just easy. Just easy.
Right.
What was that? What was that?
The way you said that.
Just... Oh man, but yeah, we are in this interesting time, right? In Ashes, it is kind of interesting to see. We've seen some stuff fall off. Right? We've seen, I wouldn't necessarily say interest fall off. I think that for those of us, and I'm speaking from a content creator side, right? When that video was released last year and Asmongold and the big influencer hype train happened, I felt very similar to how I feel now. There's a big uptick in interest.
Yeah.
People got caught up on their information, especially as you have more and more content creators. So there's always information to find. You can find the information, get the information disseminated really quickly. And people said, oh, great. That's awesome. Let me bookmark the page. Let me make myself an account and join the Discord and moving on to the next thing. And I think that's tough for a lot of people to be super interested in the game 2 years out. I love doing it. That's one of my favorite parts of the game is the lead up to development, but I think it can be pretty tough for some people.
I think it's also interesting.
It's a marathon.
Yeah. Well, that's the point I was going to bring up. It's interesting because it's something like, I know we have like I should be streaming a lot more and doing all that. I am working a lot on my other job, and when I get home, I'm like, oh, I could probably stream for a couple hours or do something like that. And I'm like, I'm just not feeling super motivated to do it, which is interesting because a month ago during the last hype wave, I was new into this content and I see it. We see we've gotten a lot of really awesome new content creators coming into the genre, coming into the category recently, and they're all out. Like I go onto the Ash the Creation category. I'm like, oh, it's the same like 4 or 5 people. And like, I'll pop in and hang out with them and stuff like that. And they're just going all hard into it. And
that was you like 6 months ago.
That's right? What I just said. That's literally what I just said.
No, it's just and I think you are speaking to it, but it's from somebody who's been following it for so long and Fane's seen it. It's just so interesting to see the wave of content creators like leapfrog a little bit, like, and just kind of take turns on who's going hard.
And even if it's not even necessarily who's going hard, but like go hard now, yes, but are you going to stick with it, right? And I think we'll see a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot of drop off and people just not making any content. That's kind of where I'm at. Is I'm like, I need to make I need to get caught up on YouTube videos. We do our weekly podcast, all that. It'll be interesting to see because we definitely have a bunch of podcasts that have fallen off recently, at least from what I could tell. We had a bunch of podcasts that were going for a while, and then now they seem to be slowly dropping off as more people are coming into the category. People are getting burnt out, not having much to talk about. I'm not sure exactly where it's going with that. And then, you've got some of the old school guys that are still going hard after however long. It's like, damn, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to get burnt out, especially when you don't have a ton of stuff to talk about, right? When a certain amount of stuff, because when you're talking about game development, and the 2 big games before this one that I was really into covering and to making content around and to really being a part of the community was Wildstar, a fan favorite, and Guild Wars 2. I was very hyped about both of those games. I was listening to podcasts, any piece of content that was out there, I was consuming it in the lead up. And I realized that, there is kind of a split before a game is released in a community. And part of that split is theory craft and people getting in there and figuring out what it could look like and what if we did this and all that. And part of it is, okay, I want the information and then I'm done. And then I'm going to move on. Right. And I think that this is a really interesting. I've always been on the theory craft side, personally. And just based on the conversations, I feel like you guys are as well. You like to theory craft things, kind of think out what it could be, what could it look like. And I would say, here's the call to action to the Ashes community. If you're not a theory crafter, try to get into it a little bit, because I think that we're seeing changes, not only quickly, but very responsively in terms of responding to the community. So I think that this is the game. If you're going to theory craft and talk about how something should work, this is the game to do that in.
Well, I think that's also why a lot of us got into this game, right? Is because we have a say in this community. We can't they are listening to us and it is fun. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to be a content creator for this game, is so I could, theory craft with all the awesome community members and all that and come up with things that we think are good and bad. And that's why, I very much try to take the platform of voice your opinion. I'm going to voice mine. I might be right. I might be wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, let's voice opinions and see where we come to, but voice your opinion with an open mind and go into it, as you're saying, with a theory crafting mindset. Like, well, here's where I feel like it could come from, but be ready to, change that based on how everything plays out.
Yeah, theory craft, but allow yourself to be reactive to what's happening as well. Because ultimately, Intrepid does have their vision for the game. And it absolutely, I mean, give the feedback. We talked about it a little bit last week, but I mean, how quickly that they came out with the variant to combat. I mean, that's huge. That's an integral system within the game, and they're willing to listen to feedback and say, okay, can we do this better? So if they're willing to listen to feedback there, then that tells me that they're willing to listen to feedback in the less important areas of the game as well. Or the less integral portions of the game as well. So it's definitely an interesting time to be following Ashes of Creation for sure.
But I think that kind of segues into the perfect thing. Did you guys get in and try any of these combat changes at all?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, a little bit.
What'd you
Yeah.
guys think?
I loved it 1,000 times more than the lock in place. Now, I think that there's room for a middle ground, but between the two versions that we have available to us, not counting tab, but the two action versions that we have available to us, I like the free flow.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
Um, I like the free flow. It definitely needs some animation work to make it feel better, right?
Mhm.
In terms of it feels a little too floaty now, and then the bottom is doing weird things that the top is not like. It kind of like if you're just watching it visually, it doesn't make any sense. Um, but what I would say is I kind of wish we would find a balance, like having
Yeah.
I kind of like how there's light and heavy attacks in New World, something like that, where like you're free flowy for a while, and then maybe on the third attack or something like that, you get a step forward and a bigger attack or something like that, where you have to pay attention to what you're doing, because right now you just hold down Q and just let things go and do random stuff until you're ready to move on to another ability, and it doesn't. I mean, it just feels like another tap target game, which is fine. I don't think it's an issue, I guess, is where I'm going with this. But I think if they want to get that impactful combat and change things up from your standard tab target, they do need to do something that adds a little bit more to that action combat and paying attention to where you are in auto attacks and things like that.
Well, I think the biggest thing when it comes to finding the balance is you kind of arbitrarily feel a balance when you take the weapon into consideration. So one of the things that I think New World does extremely well with it is when you're wielding the great axe or the warhammer or whatever the hammer and the axe, when you're wielding those things, the big beefy two-handed weapons, and you go in for a swing on that, you feel it. It's slow, it's clunky, it's like, but then when you have like the rapier, it's fast, quick, slice and dice, and I think if we saw a better representation of that within New World, or sorry, within Ashes, I think that would help with that
Hmm.
feeling. And then one of the things that I've noticed within New World is I'm literally picking my weapon, and this is how it should be, by the way. But I'm literally picking my weapon based on the play style that I want to play. So like we'll
Yeah.
have people come into Virtue and be like, "Hey, I'm new to New World. I haven't checked anything out on it, but I want to play the game with you guys on launch. What weapon should I pick?" And I ask basic questions. Do you like to hit slow but hard, or do you like to hit fast and light? And if they say somewhere in the middle, then I say go spear. Um because it's like this weird middle ground between the two. But I think
Well, spear for
it
me is
helps.
all about crowd control, about being able to knock people over constantly and
Yeah, but the
have
speed of the
range.
attack itself is in
Yeah.
between rapier and
Yeah.
axe.
Yeah.
And so just trying to narrow that down for people, because New World, and this is supposed to be what Ashes is supposed to be as well, is you play the game that the way that you want to.
Hmm.
And I don't think New World has hit that exactly with everything. I think they have when it comes to weapon selection, essentially class selection. Um, but it's something that I'm really looking forward to Ashes, doing more of, and incorporating the crafting a little bit more and all that other stuff. But I mean, we're talking about combat. Um, so I agree that middle ground I think is something that would be big for Ashes. It's I don't think you need to be 100% floaty, but the current act or the action combat before the change was implemented was too clunky across everything,
Yeah.
and so nothing
Mhm.
felt good.
And I mean, I think there are different like attack speeds and all that, but it doesn't feel that different. This is the biggest thing. Like
Yeah.
when you're wielding a massive two-handed fiery war axe in Ashes, doesn't feel that different from when you're wielding a one-handed war axe, right? Or a shield and a war axe. Right now, nothing just really, yeah, nothing feels that different. And it's an early iteration. And so that's the stuff I guess we're talking about, right? When we're talking about theory crafting here is what changes can they make moving forward that are going to be impactful, that are going to make combat feel better, and is going to make your weapon choice matter. And that's the other thing I think we need to see is the passive, or not the passive, but the skill tree for weapons. What kind of direction is that taking us? Because
Yeah, that's gonna be really interesting to see. Like even things, weapon speed, not so much damage or adding bleeds when you're using daggers, but the speed of the weapon attacks is going to be really important. Now, I have a hot take here, I kind of want you guys to respond to it. What if they just left the current, what's in right now, just left that in there until late alpha 2 when they get all the classes in? Do you think that they should keep tweaking the basic combat, or do you think that they should fix it now and then make the classes match the combat versus put in the classes and then make the combat something that feels good across the board?
They need to fix it now. They need to know what direction they're going with combat, or else the classes are not going to make sense as they come out.
yeah,
If they are constantly iterating upon and changing on a big level. I mean, the difference between root and no root, that's a big level. I'm not talking about like the flair of the combat, or hey, the axe now finishes its animation at point 2 instead of point 3. Like, I'm not talking about the small changes. Those are going to happen throughout the lifespan of the game, let
Yeah.
alone testing. But the big changes, they need to nail this down, or else the classes, there won't be a base level of consistency across the classes. And without a base level of consistency, you then cannot create what's the word I'm looking for? Impactful variances between the classes to give that class identity.
That's fair.
Well,
That's a fair point.
I'm gonna go with I kind of want a balance of the two. Like I think it's good to keep doing small iterations and stuff like that, but the classes themselves are gonna change how the combat feels as well, right? Because you know, I mean, locking you into place with your moves might make sense for certain classes, or certain weapons, or whatever you're doing, depending on what combat meta is around, right? So if you're I mean, the biggest thing is we just don't really have like much in the way of ranged combat. We have the mage, but even the mage is kind of like not really ranged. It's like mid tier, I feel like. You're kind of like right behind the tanks in terms of like dropping CCs and AoEs and stuff like that. You're not casting at like a real range. So I think we need to see some more stuff. And then like when you add in rogue and like the stealth possibilities and where they out like their mobility and what they can jump onto and stuff like that. I think it's just gonna be a thing of like adding in everything over time. But I think there do need to be some clear iterations early. Which I mean, I guess what direction would you want them to go in right now? That's not in there. What do you want changed right now?
I think what I said earlier, I want to feel the impact of the different weapons. I want the cleric's mace to. I mean, point of contention that I don't care either way. Whether the mace is slower than the sword or the sword is slower than the mace, but I would like to feel a little bit of a difference between the weapons. And maybe sword and mace isn't the right one. Maybe it should be great axe versus sword. But I want to feel a difference, and I want to feel an impactful difference between what I'm deciding to use and to play as.
And here's something that I've noticed: is the physics seem a little off. There's you basically the swing speed is the same throughout the entire thing. There's none of this like when you start to make an attack, you have to build up the acceleration and then hit. And that's something to take into account. That's why like a mace should feel very different from a sword. A sword is balanced, right? A mace is very much not balanced. And so a mace takes even longer to wind up and then clunks way harder when you actually hit with it. So I think it's some of that aspect too, and where all the weapons right now just kind of feel generic. It doesn't like honestly, like you're just, and that was the thing, right? We were just looking at what are the stats of the weapons right now, as opposed to how does this feel different.
If they don't do that, then it's just World of Warcraft combat. And then they should just do tab targeting. Like action combat, you need to feel it. Like you need to feel like you're doing something within action combat. And if you're not, then you may as well just go tab. Which there's nothing wrong with that. Like I mean, I've said it before on the show. Honestly, if they spend right now, if A2, we don't have a final version of what combat is going to be by the end of A2, I say they scrap it and they go tab.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I don't think we'll get out of A2 without us having a final version. In fact, I think combat's
Agreed.
probably going to be, when we talk about like long running milestones with smaller milestones throughout, I think that going into A2 as they're releasing classes, as we're seeing things like fighter and ranger, and then eventually, bard, rogue, and summoner, I think that that'll be like combat is going to be the big thick thing that needs to happen, because if combat feels good, the game will feel good. You can tweak other things, but as long as the combat feels good. Crafting, it's just numbers, right? You just say, oh, crafting feels too grindy. Okay, well, we'll just tweak all the crafting experience by 1.5 and you'll be able to level a little faster and all these other things. But combat is what makes games great, and combat is what ruins games.
So it's about what has to hit the mark on launch and what can be iterated upon for big improvements later on. I think that combat, and we've talked about it before, right? Like, what are the things that have to work? The node system has to work. That has to hit the mark on launch. Combat has to hit the mark on launch. Though very excited about all of the ideas that are around crafting right now from what we've been able to decipher through what Intrepid has been saying. I think that crafting can be one of those things that can be tweaked upon. It's not as integral in my head, and I know, pure crafters, Wizzy's probably wanting to strangle me right now. But it's not as integral to the game as nodes and combat and server stability.
I honestly think so I know combat is a huge part of the game, but I think it is less of a part of a game like this as compared to some other MMOs. I think, yes, it needs to feel, it needs to be fun and good, but it's the constant evolving aspect of the world around you and the market's developing. It's like, look at EVE Online. EVE Online's combat is dog shit. It's terrible. They've made it better.
Nobody's done space combat right.
Well, still, but how many how successful have they been over the years? And they have their ups and downs, and it seems like they're falling off nowadays. But that's not the And yes, as I said, it is important, but I don't think it is quite as important as some other games. Like BDO without the combat would have flopped, right? Whereas this game can get away with not having the absolute best combat. That's kind of where I'm at. I think it needs to be good, but I do think people will play this game regardless of where the combat ends up, as long as they can, as I said, and that's why the default should be all right, we're just going to fall back on a tap target. Because this game will be very fun, even if it just had WoW combat. If they deliver everything else and just have WoW combat in terms of tab targeting, I'd have a fucking blast playing this game for years and years and years.
Agreed. For me, and I know not everybody is on the same page with this, but for me, I'm not trying to play Ashes for the combat. I'm trying to play Ashes for literally everything else that comes into it. But that being said, I've also been following it for a very long time.
Yeah.
They can shit all over combat, and it's still something that I want to play because of all the, like I said, all the other things that are going to be implemented. But somebody new just coming to the game, exactly what you said with BDO. I think it even applies to New World. New World is literally carried by its crafting and by its combat. We've been over it. The questing's dog shit. Take away combat. Take away combat? What does New World have left?
I have a question. Does anyone understand anything about the New World itself? The lore, what's going on?
Yeah, I know I can drown very easily.
So you're sailing from Europe to discover America, and you figure that out based on the type of metal hat.
Okay.
Sort of thing.
Okay, I got that one.
So you're supposed to go, when you're leaving Europe, you're supposed to go west, and the guys fucked up. And they landed on a magical island, and the lore is absolute horseshit. There's literally no.
Wait, how these towns? We spawned on a beach. How'd these towns get built up?
So, I think that goes back to
The
the
Tolnar.
original version, the Tolnar. I think that goes actually back to what the original version of what New World was supposed to be, and that we should have been building those towns.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
So-
I get it. I'm just saying, like, we're like New World was still fun. I still played the shit.
We're literally playing Gilligan's Island. All right, that is what New World is. We went on a 4-hour fucking boat tour, and we crash landed, and here we are, and it's just it is.
There are cities now. We took over the cities. We'll give the people whose cities they were casinos later. That's fine. Also, how did the NPCs get here? Can we talk about that for a second? These fuckers are just sitting here on the island. New World, listen.
The old gods spawned them. The old gods.
Amazon, if you're out there, Jeff, look at, I know you don't have any hair, so you're jealous of everybody in this thing. But Jeff, we will.
You've got hair. It's just migrated.
We're gonna drink for about 4 or 5 more hours, and then we're just gonna write some shit down, and that's gonna be better lore than you guys created with New World. Okay, just take it. It's for free. We'll just give it to you.
Here's the crazy thing. I don't understand like spending what I've heard is like $100 million on the voice acting for New World when they don't even impart any like world building or lore with it. It's like, here's all your voice acting. It's really cool. Now you can listen to someone.
Bad.
You could go from point A to point B, and you were told so by a voice actor.
It's
like I don't get.
So look at SWTOR. SWTOR, and I always come back to this game, and I love this game, and I still kind of love this game, even though I don't play it anymore. Voice acting, A fucking plus. Story, A fucking plus. Everything else was pretty bad.
For which game? Which game? Sorry.
Hey,
SWTOR.
I enjoyed the PvP in that game.
Okay, PvP, the raids, they were all fine. Right? They were all fine, but they weren't amazing. The storyline, and I tell people all the time, if they're like, well, I never played SWTOR, I'm like, listen, just understand that you're going to run the class story for all 8 classes, enjoy it as like a cinematic movie that you're a part of, and then that's about the enjoyment you're going to get out of SWTOR. So to have that money invested in voice acting and not to put any of it in like some sort of semblance, or maybe we're supposed to unlock the story. There were a lot of pages that I was collecting out there.
Listen, any game that wants to Elder Scrolls me, I'm gonna tell them to go fuck themselves, and I don't care about the lore anymore. Like, if I have to run around the world and collect pages just to understand the lore of the game, that's lazy development, and I hate that. I hate that type of storytelling.
This is a role-playing game. It is a storytelling medium. You are supposed to get the story while you play the game, not be forced to leave the game to read about the story. That's what Wikipedia is for. The wiki is for. Like, I don't need to like.
Yeah, no, and that's very relevant. I mean, obviously, comparing a game that is literally weeks away from release to a game that is an alpha, we have more understanding of the lore within Ashes. A game that is an Alpha 1 development, barely an Alpha 1 development.
And they're trying to keep it from us. They're like very selective in what they're telling us.
Yeah, Steven is like, oh shit, I probably shouldn't have said that. Like we're like just over here like lore, give me more lore. So I think that this actually, like, in a weird way, kind of combines a little bit what we were talking about here, and I'd like to discuss this a little bit. When you were talking about SWTOR Fane, and you were talking about the marks that they hit, this brings up a question in my head. I would kind of like to go over and maybe go through a couple of different games that we've played on launch, whether it be expansions or new release games, and kind of figure out what are the marks for Ashes that need to be hit when it comes to content within the game. We're not talking server, we're not talking player population, all that. We've gone over that stuff a bunch already. Well, so what are the content marks based on other games that we've played that need to be hit? Because the example of SWTOR, and I agree with, voice acting was amazing. Storytelling, and we can wrap voice acting and storytelling together. So storytelling was amazing. But like the PvE, it missed. PvP in the beginning, it missed. It got better. The PvE got better, but it missed in the beginning.
In the beginning, it was awful. I only played on launch, and I remember doing the first raid or two, and I was like,
Soa before you're wanting to kill yourself. Like,
right. But I made it down the ramps without dying. Super. I did it this time. I didn't fall off the side.
Hey, so what I do want to say is I think it's interesting, and I think you bring up a really good point. And I think the question is, and this is something to ask Amazon, is do you want an IP or do you want a quick hit of a game?
I think they
You
want
want
a
the
quick
you want
hit.
the Amazon you want the Amazon answer?
Yeah, I think
They-
they want a quick hit.
The Amazon answer is very clearly so that they can show that it was very easy to develop and to change a game using Lumberyard, our new proprietary version of CryEngine. Please pay us licensing fees. That is something that I think a lot of like the New World haters miss, is that is a part of this, and it's not a small part. I get that they're still developing a game, but it's game also demo. It is kind of demo.
I think it's a
Right.
legitimate. I agree with that 100%. And I think it's also a legitimacy launch pad. They have had how many failed launches at this point, or failed projects at this point, which
None.
is fine. Like they don't care.
None.
Like that's fine. Like it.
Guys, by the way,
They burn
the
money.
three of us will be 3-stacking Crucible later tonight. We're gonna be playing Crucible because Amazon has never failed a game launch.
So I think they need a legitimate launch to, or they need a launch to legitimize their gaming studio. They need to be able to say, hey, we're not just, a book company. We're not just a 2-day shipping company, although that's arguably false in today's day and age.
They're like a 2 to 3 week shipping company.
Somewhere in there.
Oh no,
You'll
wait,
get
stop.
it. You'll get
Time
it.
out.
Yo,
And
I
it's,
have to
and
rant
it's
about
free
something.
shipping. We just include the shipping in the price. So we're more
So these-
expensive than everywhere else, but it's free shipping.
These are SD cards. These go into a case. I ordered the case and Amazon was like, it's going to be there Wednesday. This was last Wednesday. And I was like, wait, that case never came. And I checked it and the Amazon response is essentially, we'll tell you when we ship it. It's been a week. What the fuck?
Hey, COVID's
Amazon's
causing
done.
issues with everyone, okay?
It's been a week and COVID is
Hold
sort
on,
of
hold on. I need to jump down Zillin's throat here real quick.
I mean, we
Listen,
all
Zillin.
do, but hey.
Listen, Zillin. I sent it in chat already, but I rated every single fucking raid in that game at the highest difficulty level for 3 goddamn years. Just because I bring up SOA when talking about the launch doesn't mean I did not play the rest of the game. I guarantee you I was better at that game than you, and I guarantee you I progressed further in that game than you. Suck
And
my
I
dick.
progressed further than Super. So, and Super, I know how far Super got. And
I have a question because I haven't actually gotten that far. Did you think it was harder than Mythic rating in WoW?
No. So this is all okay. So for different reasons. So
yes.
the hardest level of rating within SWOTOR, because of the lack of add-ons, you literally had to know the voice lines, you had to know the animations, and you had to know the combinations of those two, along with their positioning within the room, to know and understand which mechanics were coming, and basically have an internal timer running within your head. Now, that being said, a lot of that can be mitigated by a really good raid leader.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You just have call outs from the raid. That's what DBM does, right? Basically
Exactly.
does the raid leader's job for them so they can focus on other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, from a general player perspective, I think that the hardest level of difficulty of raiding in SWOTOR was more difficult on a barrier to entry level.
Okay.
Whereas the WoW Mythic raiding is split up into 2 tiers. You have the first half of the raid, and then you have the second half of the raid. SWOTOR raiding is more difficult than the first half of Mythic WoW raiding, but Mythic WoW raiding is more difficult in the second half of the raid.
Depends on the raid, The first boss is always easy, but then it depends.
Sure. If we're talking, what was that one called?
There's
the
Maiden of
first-
Virtue. There was
the first one in Legion. It was the first one in Legion where you had Ursoc and you had Xavius was the last boss. Anyways, but that one was just
not the
easy all the way
first one in
through.
Legion.
Yeah, that was that entire.
What's the
raid was
one with
throwaway.
KT at the end? Or not KT, KJ. Kill Jaden
yeah,
at
kill
the end.
Jaden.
That was a
so
hard fucking raid.
Yeah, no,
all
I took a
throughout.
break on that
I
one.
like.
I didn't rate that one on
dude,
on tier. So, but I heard stories like our guild
KJ
fell
was
apart like 3 times.
Yeah, I just
let's go back to Super's question here though.
See,
I want to really dive into
off
this.
tangent a little.
Because we definitely went off there for a bit.
Here, let me give you direction. Let me give you direction just a little bit here, Fane, because you're the Wildstar expert. Where did Wildstar hit the mark in your opinion? Let's break Wildstar down here. Wildstar's combat was amazing. If anyone says that they didn't enjoy Wildstar's combat, I know there's no such thing as a wrong opinion, but you're fucking wrong. Right off the bat, you're wrong. That combat was so much fun. Even with all of the mobs telegraphing their abilities, putting circles and dots and lines down on the ground, Wildstar's combat was incredible. I think that the crafting in Wildstar was really good. I know a lot of people, right until the end, loved the instanced player housing where they were building jump puzzles on their houses. They were making like all sorts of crazy, insane, creative stuff. Where Wildstar failed is their dungeons and raiding. It was like there was no mythic difficulty. You just went, or no non-mythic difficulty. You just went in and it was hard. It was just hard from the get-go, right? Now, was that a scaling thing or was that actually a mechanics thing?
I think it was a mechanics thing. I think that the mechanics that you were using, so let's say there's a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being the hardest thing ever in a game and 1 being go kill 10 rats, right? I think that as you progress through Wildstar, you were moving from like a 1 to like a 35 or a 40 in terms of like reading the telegraphs on the ground, the abilities, learning how to dodge out of the way and use all that stuff. And then they're like, welcome to dungeons, this is an 80. And then they were like, welcome to raids, this is 155. Like the jumps got, instead of it being a nice smooth progression where people can kind of figure out their where their skill cap is and then base down upon that, there were just very static jumps, right? It would be like never raiding, so go back to Swordroid. It was never raiding Eternity Vault, and then you jumped into Explosive Conflict. You have no fucking idea what to do.
Yeah. So within Wildstar, within the, again, we're talking like the core systems itself. So would you say that? I mean, it sounds like, so you'd say combat was a hit.
Combat was a hit.
Raiding,
crafting was a hit.
Crafting was a hit.
Raiding was entertaining if you could get there, and not enough people could get there.
So they didn't have a low enough barrier for entry. I think I legitimately actually think that is a miss. Because
big miss.
You need the pleb population of a game to be able to at least touch some of that in-game content. If they can't even get there, and only the most coordinated, experienced, neck beardy, heavy breathing mouth breathers can get there, then you're not going to have a successful game.
You don't have an end game,
aka Wildstar.
Yeah, you don't have an end
even
game.
Though they had some very big hits, they missed.
Yeah, big time. I think they missed.
I mean, they're not around, so they obviously missed.
Exactly. No, and I think, and that's kind of what brought this question up. It's like, okay, let's see where the hits are, and then decide, and then work backwards from there, and wrap it around to Ashes, and be like, okay, hey, just based on fucking experience alone, this is where you need to hit.
And I would say is a good tab target for combat is enough of a hit. I wouldn't say it's like, and as Steven has said, he's not trying to reinvent the wheel here. So that's that. Yeah. So I'm going to come back to saying, I think they can just go with a tab target as long as they hit on these other things, right? As long as they continue to hit on everywhere else. No one is ever no one is looking at these other games that have tab target. And tab target, I feel like, is just easy to figure out, right? Like, I don't feel like it's that hard for a game studio to implement a decent tab target system.
That's why so many of them have it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just like identify closest and then second closest and then third closest and use the ability.
Well, the good ones do the center screen as well.
Yes.
Because in WoW, depending on where you position your screen is where your tab target will go. Whichever one is most center is what's selected. And then if there are too many within your screen, then it prioritizes closest to furthest.
What I would say is I do miss that idea of having like a really good raid leader that can take a brand new group through something that is relatively difficult content, but if they explain it all to the group and they're calling out, that group can still get through it. That way you can kind of carry some of your newbie people through, or let people have a nice introduction by going with a good group and then being like, all right, now you got to figure out for yourself moving forward, things like that. I mean, I remember literally sitting there and talking about what was right and wrong, what we're doing, each boss, before each raid and WoW back in the day. And then it suddenly became, make sure you watch the video before we raided, guys.
Yeah. It became someone
and
else
have all your add-ons updated.
Yeah. And that's not fun, right? That takes away any enjoyment for me in raiding. I like, okay, and I know this takes longer, and so people don't like it as much, blah blah blah. But we just wiped. Like, okay, so I will say, going back to the SWTOR thing, Eternity Vault is a 3-phase fight. When you get to the last phase, you have to kite the boss until a pillar comes down and breaks his shield, and that's when you have a chance to DPS him.
I honestly loved that mechanic.
Figuring that out for the first time was frustrating. Like, the first few times we went after that boss, we were like, we're not doing any damage. What the fuck's going on? And these pillars keep killing us. And someone said randomly, hey, it was the same moment you and I had in Ashes Bard. It was that moment of, hey, should we take Soa underneath the giant pillar that's coming down? Maybe that will do damage to him. It broke his shield and then we were good. And I was like, hey, Bard, that talisman we're trying to make, what do you, and you're like, I'm already ahead of you. We're already to it. Yep, I can get into this dragon with no fire damage taken. That moment of discovery, I think, is something that's really important. I think it's why we like new games, is to discover something that no one else has discovered, really.
Well, and it was the same thing going through the New World dungeons. I mean, our group, when we first went through the expedition, the very first, or was it the first or the second? I think it was the second. Yeah, because the first one was easy. That was a throwaway. It was the second expedition at 35. And we had somebody who had seen the video, and we told him, shut up. Don't tell us anything. Like, we're going to figure this out. And we had wiped on the last boss, I think, twice. And then I was finally like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. These seem like spread mechanics, but I think they're actually stack mechanics. And I think it's a little bit of a heal check. So let's stack. Let's make this happen, because if the ads are spawning based on player location, then let's pick where the ads are going to spawn, and let's spawn them all on top of us and AoE them down and do that. And that type of discovery is it's better than the boss kill. Honestly, like when you were the one to be like, like the guy that, like, within your group that was like, hey, put Soa underneath the pillar. I guarantee you, he was flying higher than anybody else in the group, because it was his idea that got the boss down. And that discovery is just so, and you can't get that unless it's new content. And so it's one of those things that's not you can't replicate it easily.
It's the other issue, and that's what Blizzard kind of fucked up on, by allowing people to make content on the beta tests. And they would allow people to make, like, Fat Boss was allowed to make boss guides before the raid was even out. And it's based off the beta content, but that's still like, no, that can't, like, no, people need to figure it out for themselves. And, like, unless you're at the, like, top world 100 mythic raiders, and trying to figure out the strats for yourselves, you're never going to have those moments of discovery, because if you want to compete, if you want to be even close to competing, you have to watch that content.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we talked about it before when it came to player-based testing. I can't remember how many weeks back it was, but we specifically talked about WoW. But one thing that they never see is the mythic phase. They're never allowed to see the mythic phase of the final boss. Now, I don't think that excuses it. I agree, Bard. Like, I think that
of the final boss. So
right, exactly. Like the last 5 to 10 minutes, 50 minutes if it's Sylvanas. But because that fight's so damn long.
It's a long fight.
So what was the kill? Like 18, 20 minutes, something like that. That was crazy. So I think, like, when in terms of WoW, they need to pull that back a little bit. But I also don't know if a game like WoW is actually able to do that in the same way that a game like New World or Ashes is going to be able to. Because not only is the dungeon or the expedition itself new content, But and speaking directly about Ashes here as opposed to New World, the discovery of that dungeon or the discovery of that raid is content in and of itself. It's not just this portal that's sitting there and you go through it, you get the group that you want and you go through it. Like, something within the world has to happen. And so and it's just another reason why we're so hype about Ashes, because it's content on top of content on top of content. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing, right? And I think that's why Ashes is going to be successful, is because Eve, like, you, like, especially in World of Warcraft, you feel like you have to watch the videos, you have to watch the guides, you have to get all the information you can to compete with everyone else, right? There's no other option. Everyone's doing the same content. If you are missing any kind of information, you're missing out. Whereas in Ashes, if a new dungeon opens up,
you might be the first server with it.
You might be the first server with it, or even if other servers have had it, you're the only group in there. It's an open world dungeon. You have all the time in the world to figure it out for yourself and mess around and try things out.
So, and this gets off topic a little bit. So if you guys want to bring it back after that, please just, re-rail it here. But what do you guys think about an idea where, so two servers unlock the same dungeon, right? That whatever they did, they ended up unlocking the same dungeon.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about an idea where the layout of the world, whether it be node development, whether it be types of nodes, levels of types of nodes, whatever factor they decide to bring into the game that contributes to a difference within the dungeon? That way, even if one server has the dungeon unlocked, because of the layout of their world, fuck, Bard.
That's for you, Super. That's for you.
Oh,
you're
I
off the dad juice. Let's go.
Because of the layout of that server's world, that dungeon is actually different than the other server. Now, I'm not talking like, obviously the mob type is going to be the same. The boss, the actual boss models themselves are going to be the same. But mechanic differences, like, let's say if there's a level 6 divine node really close by, well, now the boss starts doing a bunch of holy damage or light damage, as opposed to if you have an economic node. It's just different stuff. That way there is no one guide that defines the entire game.
I would love it.
You more have server guides rather than game guides.
I would love that. Absolutely love it. But I don't see, like, that's just unrealistic in terms of how much they have to develop at that point. But cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Hydrate. Here's where I'm gonna say I don't like it, Super. And shocking turn events, I'm gonna disagree with Super here for a second, as if that's ever happened in the history of the world. Nice. So the issue with that is community. And here's something. At the end of the day, Super, yeah. you and I didn't raid together, but you and I both experienced the same thing in SWTOR raiding. We've experienced those moments. And so saying like, oh yeah, we did this dungeon and all that holy damage, we had to do this whole thing. And they were like, holy damage, we were near an economic node and the thing threw coins at us or some shit, like whatever the thing.
It threw a Diablo 3 goblin at us.
Yeah, so it's like the similarity already. It's going to be exciting, not just that like you did the raid and I did the raid. Oh my god, we did the same dungeon, so we kind of leveled up our server in a similar way in this one place. Oh, that's great. So we can bond over the similarity and then discuss the difference.
And then so obviously flex because we completed it at the highest tier.
Yeah,
and you
completed it at the holy damage tier.
Listen,
you completed it at the treasure goblin tier. God damn it.
It might just because I've been drinking a little bit, but I from that standpoint and looking at it from the community side, because I do think that is something. I think that's something important. And I'm gonna delete the VOD, so go ahead and clip this. But I agree.
There's no ability to delete the VOD.
Clip that. Super agreed with me. Clip it.
I'm going to. I'm gonna delete it.
Zero.
Clip it.
Zero.
So, but I think that's a very. I really do think that's a very valid point to bring up, because if there's too much of a difference between the servers, then it might turn into what we've talked about in the past of what we want to avoid, and that's meta server gaming. oh, I'm not on the right server to be a ranger, or oh, I'm not on the right server to be a cleric because I don't have certain things unlocked or whatnot. And that's how we've talked about it in the past. And so I agree.
Well,
And maybe even taking it a step further that, well, shit, maybe the boss throwing the coins at you is a much easier completion of the dungeon than the holy version of the dungeon. And so that turns into kind of that metagaming and meta server selection that I think is detrimental to the overall game health and server stability of multiple servers. So I agree.
yeah, and I think it's interesting. I don't want it to be too different, but I want it to be different enough. And I think that's where the challenge tier we've talked about, or that Steven has said will be in the game, where, if you complete the first boss with certain metrics, the next boss becomes harder and harder and harder.
Well, that's different. That's individual group type progression.
Yes,
right?
But that's but that's like, because let's be real, we're gamers. We want to be able to flex on each other. Like, when you invest a lot of time and you do something better than your friends, you want to flex, right? Like, you want to be like, yeah, we completed at this tier, we got this, or like, that's why I want my legendary item. Like, you don't want that legendary item because it actually helps you like complete content better. You want it because like it looks cool and now everyone knows you have the one in a server legendary item. Like, it comes down to that collector aspect, right? Super. Like, there's that aspect of, oh, I've got this, and this over someone else who doesn't have that. That's why you collect things, or that's why you game. So there needs to be that aspect as well. And so if we're taking it back to the original conversation of check marks, I think you need to have stuff that is sought after. And I think that's one of the reasons we're very into Ashes of Creation, right? Because basically they've said not everyone gets a trophy. So a lot of the stuff you complete is stuff only you get. So it's your experience, what you have taken away from it. And as I said, taking it back to that collector aspect, like that's how I look at my collecting. It's like, well, I have this stuff from this era. I'm not going to go out and like, to me, buy it. Like, so just talking about Pokemon cards, I'm not going to go and spend a bunch of money on a Pokemon card that I don't feel like I was a part of or didn't earn. That makes sense. That to me isn't the true collection. To me, it's the experience and the journey I have written with my collection. Oh, well, I started collecting here. I started doing this here. And that's the same thing with video games to me. It's about, I was a part of this. I collected during this. I put in the extra money to get this amount of time. And that does bring up an interesting point that Steven said that a lot of people brought up, which was, will there be some kind of memorandum of your dead flying mount, right? When the time expires and your flying mount dies off, or your whatever dies off, will there be some kind of...
you cook it. You cook it and it becomes your next meal.
But I personally think there should be some, whether it's an achievement or something, there should be some kind of memorable thing for you, because like a flying mount being 1% of the population is able to achieve that, and you achieve that, there should be something commemorating that for you.
I think there should be a Bone Strider version of it, like that's a ground mount at that point. It no longer can fly, but it's a Bone Strider
what about
version.
A gliding mount? It could be a Bone Strider gliding mount, right?
No, there's no feathers.
Well, no,
glide with bones.
It's
bones sink.
They float. They're light.
They sink.
It's like a bat. It's like a bat. You just have some kind of like skin-like material there, and it can glide.
Okay, but even easier. Achievement unlocked, 10 achievement points, and the title that you get was Took to the Skies. You get that as soon as you equip and ride a flying mount, and you can have that forever. So that down the road, you can just put on the title Took to the Skies, and people are like, that guy had a flying mount at some point.
Yeah, but I think it should be different than that. I think there should be some kind of like timestamp as well available for it.
Well, don't a lot of achievements have timestamps like in the achievement log, like when you accomplished it? And so you can be like, I took to the skies, look at that, first 60 days of the game coming out, first 30 days of the game coming out.
And I think, well, that's it, is I think that in 60, maybe 60 to 120 day time periods, they have a different little achievement for when you achieved it, and slowly like ranking down, basically. I don't know if that makes sense.
I do really like that idea, and it kind of goes along with I mean, it goes along with the typical types of achievements and titles that I like within games, and it's like, we talked about it before with Ashes, where it's like first through the portal. If you're a beta tester or an alpha tester, you get like something that's associated with it to show your longevity within the game. And I think, and I agree, Bard, I think having some kind of like, you know, closest to the sun or first to flight or something like that, like a world first flying title or a world first like there should be other levels of world first. So one thing that's really
Icarus
cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One thing that's really cool about the Diablo 3 seasons is there are server game wide announcements of when somebody gets a particular season conquest done, and that's really cool. Like, and it's a server first on a smaller scale, but somebody had to put time and dedication into a very specific area of the game to get that done, and to recognize them for that is really cool. And so maybe it's first to craft a legendary, or first to get flying, or first to build a ship, and just have little stuff like that. That's not like
and
they've already established that it's not.
And that's why
you log in and get everything.
That's why WoW was as successful as it was. It's the first to involve that achievement system.
Yeah.
Like, think back to the days like it was flexing on someone else. You were the first to do something. Think back to, what was it? The Black Karaji mount, whatever, or forget the name of the title and all that. Title didn't come into play before that, but like, that's how mount collecting came into it, to being a thing. It's the idea that only certain people could get it at certain times. That was highly sought after. And where WoW missed out and started failing is when they made almost everything obtainable to everyone. They kept going back and
I want to see. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, they kept going back and introducing ways to get these like once in a lifetime mounts and stuff like that. And I think they did it wrong in some senses, like introducing these 1% drop chance mounts in these raids. I think that's fine. I think that's great. But if you're going to do it, as soon as the raid tier is over, the mount needs to no longer drop. So it is that truly prestigious thing, and not everyone gets everything. That's fine.
I think that's fine. So one thing that I do want to say here, and this is the only thing about the world first or the one of a kinds that bugs me, and this is a very personal experience, is I used to play this 2D MMO. It was called Nexus Kingdom of the Winds. Small population, probably had 20,000 people. It was all on one server. There were maybe a couple thousand on at any given time. Early on in that game, a blade dropped that was called the Chaos Blade, and it was going to be only one. It was only going to exist one time. Somebody picked it up, carried it around for about 30 days, and then went off to college, and that blade hasn't been in the game since. That bugs me a little bit, and here's why. I get the first, I'm fine with the one of a kind, but when somebody's not around, it feels like you've taken something out of the entire server, right? And so I still think that you should be able to get some sort of title. I agree with you guys that, like, if you're able to obtain flying in the first 6 months, 12 months, which is still going to be such a small percentage of the population, there is a title. And then if you do it 12 months to 24 months, there is a different title, and et cetera. And if they kept the titles changing so that you could put an artificial timestamp on, I achieved this early versus achieving this late.
Well, it goes into the, it legitimizes your main character. So you'll have your character that you want to do as much as you possibly can on, because in a game like WoW, I don't feel tied beyond whatever my main role within raiding is.
I think
so
that's
like Demon
dumb.
Hunter.
So dumb.
Demon Hunter tanking is the only but it's I only feel tied to it because that's what I had to show up on like Wednesday and Friday or whatever days it was I raided. Outside of that, I played my paladin, I played my druid, I played my I had no identity within the game,
which defeats the purpose of an RPG.
Exactly. It just becomes an alt simulator at that point. It's like, okay, you do it on one character, that way it's easier on other characters. Whereas if you have a title that is not account bound, but it is character bound, and you get that first to fly or first to touch the sun, whatever the title is, get you delete that character, that title no longer exists. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm all for that kind of stuff. Like, that guy put that effort
Yeah.
in. That guy, that guy or
And
gal
I
put that
would
effort in. They wanted to get it done, and they got it done, and cool. And if they quit the game right after they get the title, okay, whatever.
and I was gonna agree with Super and disagree with Thane here. That I am fine with that. I am fine with people like just being like, yeah, they got it and then they left. But the thing is, there needs to be enough of them that yes, and that makes them that much more rare when you do get on a server and you see that legendary weapon, right? So, maybe, over half the servers, that person with that legendary weapon has since quit. But when you do get on that and see that one in a server legendary weapon and it's there, it's much more epic. And then the other factor being like, there needs to be enough of these, once in a lifetime or only a few people have them per server items that it's not like a loss because there's so many other options, right? But
Agreed.
It's which option
Agreed.
you have.
Yeah.
And that's the balance, is because I don't mind it. I like the hardcore concept of you get it or you don't. Not everyone gets a trophy. I love that. I hate the concept, especially in a game that Ashes is stating that it's going to be, to see your server's history fall by the wayside because of just the attrition of player bases, right? If a lot of your player base falls off and all of these other things have disappeared. Now, with once on a server weapons or one per server weapons, that's an easy fix. They unregister their account, legendaries like that degrade. After another 30 days that they're unregistered, it's back into the recipe loot system somewhere in the ether, and that kind of stuff is fine.
And I think it kind of scales though as well, because it's like shit, what was that sword? Thunder Fury, or am I getting that name right?
What I don't know.
The WoW sword.
Oh yeah, that one.
I know you're trolling me right now, but go ahead and say it. I'm legitimately asking.
What was that?
I think it's Thunder Fury, right?
Wait. Are you talking about you're talking about Ashbringer, right?
Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker.
Thank
you, helpful. Thank you, helpful.
Did you actually not know that? I thought you were trolling me.
Thank you, helpful person in chat, and not my fucking co-host Bartik.
Oh God, what just happened? I screwed up, guys. Somehow disconnected.
No, he's here.
Oops.
But they also can't hear us now because they're picking up audio off of him. So I guess we didn't do it. Win.
Wasn't me. That was not on purpose at all, by the way.
Oh, okay. The timing was quite sus there.
Very sus.
What's sus? I've never heard of that word.
Oh, well, it's a word that go fuck yourself. But no, so when that pops up, and then the server wide notification goes out, it's Bartik has gathered their resources and is now wielding whatever Ash's weapon it is. I think there needs to be some weapons that are more commonly accessible, and I think there needs to be those one or two that are the one in the server. And because and I think that kind of fills that gap between, you want to be able to allow people to have something to shoot for, but then you also want that random roll. RNGesus came down and blessed this day and blessed my roll, and I got the greatest thing on the server.
The lottery.
Yeah, exactly.
Gambling addiction for kids.
Yeah.
Well, but I think you make it, pretty damn random.
No,
I what I don't like, and this was one thing I didn't like about the legendary system this was one thing I did like about the legendary system within World of Warcraft when Legion launched, is you literally could get a legendary from any of the raid bosses and any of your weekly caches. So there wasn't one thing in particular I needed to grind. Now, as we learned more information and lockouts are a thing and whatnot, and Mythic Plus is a thing, you ended up just grinding Mythic Plus. So, playing devil's advocate to my own statement there, but not knowing exactly where a legendary comes from it is part of the fun, because then you might have one server that's like, oh, we opened up this dungeon under this mountain and we killed the third boss within X amount of time. There's going to be so much theory crafting going on. Like, oh, you got to do this. You got to make sure this node is over here and like do this, and all of these things line up. When honestly, it's probably just a random roll and you got lucky.
Are you talking about becoming a Jedi in Star Wars Galaxies? Is that literally what you're getting into right now?
Yeah.
Because that's 100% it, and I love it.
Well, and I think that it needs to be some things, and that's why you also need the other side where there are things that are targetable.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be like, okay, I'm gonna go get Thunder Fury from this boss or this. Like, so having a balance there, but having that just extreme outlandish case for people to be like, man, that was fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as I said, I think the biggest thing, and what Thane was complaining about earlier, it was one item on the entire server.
Yeah, in the entire game.
In the entire game. And that feels bad, right? That feels terrible.
You lose a piece of history. You can't say like, versus in this game, which was a very small, close-knit community, you see that item being passed from person to person. There's a story behind it. You can even like track the lineage of the item like it's a freaking antique, like it's a rare Rolex. And I owned this, it was owned by this senator, and then this president, and then this guy.
Super has traded Thunder Fury to Thane. Thane has traded Thunder Fury, like server-wide.
Thane has pawned Thunder Fury. He's doing bad in the taverns.
You can get tavern points for giving them a legendary.
Thane has sold Thunder Fury to the vendor for 5 gold.
Next pull of the slot, guys. Next pull of the slot. It's gonna happen this time, I swear.
By the way, guys, I know we're joking about it, but this is serious. Thane has a gambling addiction. He's not allowed to go to Vegas anymore. He owes some money.
That being said, Intrepid, please help our friend with his gambling addiction. Help incentivize him to gamble more. Please bring us the TCG and make it real life.
Also, guys, use code FANE at Raise Your Edge for $300.
That's super, very much going into his own gambling addiction.
Hold on, did Fane just pull a Zillin?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Did Fane just pull a Zillin? Did you just raid Shadow Legends our ass?
No, Raise Your Edge.
Yeah, what's the difference? It's a sellout. What's the difference?
I sell out. I sell out here, guys. But yeah, so that I guess that's a question too, and we can get into this.
It's like moving on, guys. Moving on
the topic of Super's what each game did good thing.
Oh, we're still on that?
Who knew? By the way, the answer for ESO before we got there was nothing. They fucked up Elder Scrolls genre. Got him. Cool. That's all the MMOs that exist. I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh no. How do you preserve? Because a big part of it is the server developing, and every server developing in its unique way, who the mayors are. How do you think that there should be player-run tools within the game to preserve the history? Like remembering this time where we voted in this mayor and that mayor didn't do shit and let the whole place get sieged down. Turns out he was a turncoat for another guild.
That should be 100% player driven. If Intrepid comes out and it has any kind of list of what the good and bad mayors are, like, no, that needs to be 100% player driven.
But how? But how should that be recorded? Like, and here's my thought: a library, and you go in and there's books. And a player can go into a book for a certain amount of gold and write down the tale, and you could curate those things.
So you're talking kind of like Game of Thrones, the history of the Kingsguard, like I forget what the lead of the Kingsguard, but they had their names in the book and all the achievements that they had. Like, I see what you're saying. Unfortunately, because of the internet, I think that is unnecessary within the game. It's the same thing where I feel like cartography has a lot of potential within a game like Ashes, but in the age of the internet in which we live in, it is useless within the first couple of weeks.
It's because the YouTube video will come out about. Let me tell you this great story.
The YouTube video, the New World map with all the resources on it. I mean, like stuff like that is just going to come out. And so even though like I think it's a really cool idea, and if there was like some way to tell people like, hey, you can't access, there's no information about this on the internet. Like, but that would also then have to be a community decision. Like, the Intrepid couldn't enforce that by like.
No, definitely never enforced. But like to put something in the game, even in the what have they referred to it as, the trophy park within a node where you can see the world firsts and all these things described, having some way for the community to talk about, here are the big achievements that this node has undergone. And so now literally everybody has left. This is great. I love this. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to talk to you guys while we hang out here. It would have been better than just a text dump. Yeah, I mean, you can't really do that kind of stuff with a text dump. This is like the best troll in the world. These guys are crushing it right now. This is unbelievable. Yeah, hi Superwife, how you doing? Oh, we're just gonna cut this out. I'm not even gonna. This is not gonna be a YouTube clip, so I'm just gonna chill with you guys. I can't even bring up the wiki right now. This is actually pretty special. These guys are. I know. I can see both of them literally just laughing on the side right now. Literally, they're both off screen just laughing so hard. Okay, I'll leave too. We'll do this. We can all have some fun here.
So it's funny, guys. I actually did just have to pee and
too easy.
Make myself another drink.
Yeah.
Faye was eventually just like, I'm done, guys.
I went, there was nothing. We were there, and then Super just bounced.
Bard messaged me. He's like, "Yo, go to the bathroom when I go to the bathroom. Then just leave Fane there." Yeah, Grumpy. Listen, that was the best 30 seconds of the show that Grumpy's ever had with none of us here.
Yeah, no one was here. Grumpy loved that. He's like, "This is great."
And it's funny, Fane's like, yeah, that's not going to be a clip. There's no way this is a clip. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a clip.
It's going to be a clip. We're definitely making this a clip, by the
way. Two guys in a Bard at its best. Just nobody here.
Well, guys, you guys are slacking here. Super finally has a night where he can drink, and no one's making him hydrate.
No one has redeemed hydrate at all. It's really
except for Bard.
So, Super, going back to your question, what do you think? So, let's put this out. What do you think WoW has done well? Where does WoW hit the mark?
Rating.
Their
leveling's dog shit. The crafting is non-existent. The PvP is lackluster at best. The people who enjoy WoW PvP have literally been doing it the same way for the entire time. And honestly, I think they're a little fucked in the head if they're still doing WoW PvP. My opinion, I think WoW PvP is kind of trash. I honestly think that, okay, so this might be a point of contention, but from somebody who has not been following WoW since day one, I actually think the lore is okay. Now, the
lore is actually great, especially early on. Especially early on.
Well, I'm saying even without the history of early on. I came in Warlords of Draenor. I came in at the lowest point of WoW lore.
Oof.
And so I've only seen progression within WoW lore, whereas other people have seen.
Guys, drink. Come on.
I'm talking. I'm getting there. Jeez. I'm gonna catch
Kane's still on his first glass.
This is a large beer.
I have
12.5%.
15K points. You boys want to get drunk?
Oh my god.
God, I still have to. I'm basically gonna have to chug that thing now, and I can. Okay, all right, I'm here. All right, let's go. Yeah, Bard's over there still sipping like a fucking schoolgirl with a nipple on his bottle. So rating, I think, is really the only thing that they hit the mark on consistently with expansions and overall releases. Everything else about the game, in my opinion, is trash. Their cinematics are okay, so I mean, I guess you can maybe say, but again, I wouldn't even wrap it into storytelling because I just think that the overall lore of itself, as long as you don't do Warlords of Draenor, it's kind of hard to fuck it up. It's just, it's okay. And I know a lot of WoW lorehead people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're fucking wrong," but I mean, from a WoW lore pleb, it's fine.
I feel like WoW doesn't have that much lore considering how long it's been out.
Sipping like a what?
Are you serious though, Fane? There's so much lore. The issue is the lore is done. They've already told all the lore. Now everything that happens is the story actually unfolding for you.
And I guess that's what I mean, right? Is the lore existed? The lore was kind of set in the base, and now it's just more story every 2 years, year plus and change. That was good. That was good, Super.
That was Bard.
That was me.
Was that Bard? I thought that was Super. I just
Bard.
saw Super leaning back in his chair. I thought that.
No, I was laughing.
Oh my god.
Yo, this. I just want to say, like, this shit's going off rails real fast.
Oh yeah, real fast.
But that's the point of this night. You know, we're supposed to have fun. And you guys are supposed to have fun with us. I hope everyone else is hydrating with us, you know?
You better be, or else.
Did you just put a fist up like you're actually going to hurt somebody?
Homer Simpson fist, or else.
What I was going to say is I think that's why World of Warcraft was so successful. Is the lore and the story and all that was so well developed well before WoW even came out. So when it came out, there's so many people interested in seeing it. And then like things developed more and more and more. And I mean, I think part of the issue is that they didn't just like do a WoW 2. Like if they had just done a WoW 2, cut it and started, 1,000 years in the future or something like that, where like and then introduce new lore with everything, I think it would be drastically more successful than it is right now. And I think that's part of the issue and people have complained about the story for years. They're like, I'm literally just there to, get my mounts or do my raids or whatever. They're not there for the actual game. They're there because of what they've invested into it in the past. And I think it would be interesting if they somehow tied in some of your achievements from original WoW to WoW 2. I think there's a lot of potential there. And, when I'm talking about this is theory crafting for Ashes. This is what I'm talking about here is like how after a successful IP launch, at a certain point after 5 to 10 years of being a very successful IP of Ashes of Creation, you want to move on, right? You want to change things up. Maybe you want a new basis, you want a new platform, whatever it is. And how do you go about doing that?
Hey, that was quite rude. Your dog was trying to say something.
Yeah, your dog's making a very good point.
I would have liked for you to let your.
You know what she's saying? Someone's outside and I'm mad.
But so Bard, you said something really interesting here, and I kind of want to touch on it. So you talked about how WoW had all of their lore kind of front loaded.
Yeah.
They released it, you got it, and then there was a story that they told after it. As I look at Ashes, we know Steven's got all of this lore very much front loaded, and it releases, but there's not really a story to be told because we're supposed to be creating the story. And so I guess it's how do we share the story of our servers?
Well, that's the interesting thing. And I think this is, I've really we've talked about this before, but the multiverse, right? There's this idea that each server of Vera is actually its own individual part of this entire overarching Cosmere multiverse or whatever. Dog hates booze, by the way.
Not mine. Oh my gosh.
Mine hates booze. So funny. She likes weed candy though.
Our dog has literally knocked over Superwife's wine glass just to drink it up off of the floor.
She might drink wine. I haven't tried that yet. I don't drink wine very much.
Whiskey and beer as well. He's a booze hound.
No, but so what I was going to say is I just think it would be super interesting if, and it's something Steven is doing that every other MMO is failing at, especially New World. We talked about this earlier, right? We have no fucking idea what's going on in New World. We're like, I don't know. Like,
you're here, do shit.
You're here, do shit. Things are attacking me. Why? Like,
don't worry.
Why am I joining this faction? Because my friends are, and that's how the game works.
Don't worry about the magical things that just attacked you. There's a bush over there, and it seems like it needs to be cut.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, there's literally nothing. Whereas Steven, he's talked about how you're respawning on death is supposed to be a part of the lore. There's supposed to be all this stuff that's a part of the lore. And I am hoping, and my understanding, and I've heard certain people rail on Steven about this, about how, like, the dude that died in the mushroom cave or whatever it is, the raptor cave, right at the beginning. Well, he shouldn't have died. He just respawns. And I'm like, we don't know the lore yet. Like, there may be heroes, there may not be heroes. And we're all heroes, obviously, because we're the players. But then there may be NPCs that actually die. And
well, are you saying that within Ashes we are heroes? Because I actually kind of get the impression that we're not necessarily heroes.
I'm not saying they're not heroes in the sense,
not like in WoW's sense, right?
No, I'm not talking about like sense like you're the center of the story, but you have a connection to the essence, right? That's what I'm talking about. You have a connection to the essence. There's a reason you respawn. There's a reason you have mana. He said in the most recent dev update that sprinting is going to be tied to mana. So any kind of extra physical ability, any kind of like extra stuff comes down to a mana, a connection to the essence. That is something that is a part of this world. And maybe not everyone who comes through the portal from Sanctus has this same thing. Maybe a lot of NPCs are not that way. Maybe they actually do die, and there needs to be a lore reason and a bunch of stuff going on from that. And I mean,
well, but at the same time, it is still an MMORPG, right? Like, you need to have mobs respawn. Like, there are some base level things that as gamers we kind of just agree upon as are just going to happen, whether it makes sense to the lore or not. And mobs respawning, I think, is just kind of part of that. Well, like, if a raid boss died the first time and never came back, like, there's no content. Like, there's no.
But that's it. Is certain raid bosses come back? Like, you can explain a random raptor respawning in the environment as like you killed it and then
another one showed up.
Yeah, showed up and came into the territory and all that, or whatever you want to talk about. But if you're talking about actual raid bosses or dragons, if there's a reason when you're connected to the essence that you can come back, it suddenly puts a lore reason.
I think as long as the main story is linear enough, then it's just replay at that point. And I think that that's okay, because each person is going to experience that story at different times.
I think it is okay. I don't think that's what Steven's going for. He's said that there is a lore reason for you respawning on death. Why would that?
For us.
Yeah. So why wouldn't that but why wouldn't that tie in for like bosses that respawn? You know, random generated mob number A, like, they could respawn because, you know, anyone can take their place. But a named creature, why they're respawning, that can very much fit right into the lore reason we're respawning. And then there can also be a lore reason why things don't respawn.
I'm not saying that they can't give a reason. I'm just saying that for me personally as a player, I don't need a reason for there to be another. Did you just hit your dog's head on the desk? Somebody call PETA. Yo, chat, get this man.
Bardic is male alinity. That's it.
Yep. Clip it, guys.
Clip it.
Dog abuse.
Gonna put it on LSF. Let's go.
She's still just staring out the window out there. Like, Dad, there's something out there.
Something might come. Something might come out the window.
There's probably a fucking bear out there right now, and she's like, I got this shit. Let me go. I got this.
She's chased bears. That's cool. She wins. She wins against black bears. She's also chased moose. That's great. That's terrifying. But, no, I mean, I get it. I mean, I get what you're saying. There doesn't need to be, but it seems like Steven is putting a reason into the game.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I think that's an additional level. Like, I mean, that's just a lore explanation, right? Like, that's just that some random NPC can say that at some point, and it fills that. Like, I don't think it needs to be. I mean, I guess, you know, to me, it's not necessarily a talking point. It's just kind of like, yeah, they respawn and they respawn because of this, and that's it. But I think the general player base, you know, the 60% that we always refer to, the 60 to 70% that we refer to, it's just going to be a typical MMORPG. It's like, oh, I killed it, it respawns. Like, that's just what happens. Like, it's just what happens in these games. And you just move forward, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, I'll come back and kill it again next week after the lockout reset.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I understand that. I'm just, it seems like he's going more in depth, and if they're willing to and going to do that, I think it's a really cool concept. as well, not just like giving a lore reason for a lot of in-game stuff as opposed to just death respawns. Does that make sense? Like, so why are there, this many different servers?
I totally get what you're saying. No,
Yeah.
I 110%, and I think that level of detail is fine, and it's one of those things where it's like, shit, maybe you can make the Diablo version of the ARPG version of Ashes be the death realm or something like that. So all the raid bosses that die end
Yeah.
up being the end of like, and then when they die there, then they're reborn back in the real world. And you can do some weird lore tie-in with other IPs.
So it's interesting, and I'm guessing none of you guys have ever read or listened to a lit RPG. I don't know if you know what that is. So it's basically a book that like covers an RPG, and there's a lot of them that are like full dive scenarios. It's kind of like Sword Art Online, but in a book scenario. I've spent a lot of time driving, and I've been just like looking for a whole bunch of like different books and audiobooks and things like that to read or listen to while I was driving. And I got into this genre, and it was kind of fascinating. And when I hear some of the stuff that Steven is coming up with, I'm like, sounds a lot like some of these lit RPGs, like in terms of how there's a reason for everything in the game, because these people get trapped in the RPG, and then there's a reason they respawn, but NPCs don't. They go into like, it's a book, so they're going to go into a lot more of the lore reasons of this kind of stuff. And it was a guilty pleasure of mine for a while. And like the more I'm starting to get into this game and talk to people, I'm realizing a lot of people have actually like gotten pretty into this stuff. I think it's really interesting, and I'm kind of curious if Steven has delved into any of this, because like listening to him talk about some of the topics and how this game is going to evolve, I'm like, this sounds a lot like certain of these lit RPGs that go really in depth of like how crazy this whole everything evolves, and like how you can get one of a kind items and it matters. Other people get it. Just the risk reward of all that is fascinating. And it's interesting. I'm looking at a bunch of people like, lit RPGs, I know what that is. I'm like, yeah, it's suddenly like it's starting to become a thing.
So from a storytelling standpoint, and I think this is something, and we mentioned it earlier with SWTOR, and they had a really good storytelling. It's BioWare. I mean, they've been known for their storytelling for a long time. Honestly, I think their last great piece of storytelling was SWTOR. And then they kind of sold out a little bit, and now their shit's kind of weak. Shit's weak. What do you guys feel as though, because within an RPG, one of the main elements of storytelling that is most impactful to me is that my decision alters the outcome at particular stages within the game. Now, in an MMORPG, this is difficult because you need the story to flow in a coherent manner that makes sense for the general player base. If you have to start writing in so many variables of, if this class with this religion selects this option, then this outcome, it becomes just this web of entangled craziness that's very hard to keep track of. And then there's so many different potential outcomes. I mean, it's real life at that point, right? It's a butterfly effect. But in real time, you're experiencing it. What do you guys think Ashes needs to do when it comes to in-game storytelling? Not just the lore that we've deciphered so far, but the actual in-game storytelling, because to my knowledge, they haven't. They said that they're not really looking to go the voice actor route. They're not really looking to go the cinematic route. So what do we need? More directed to you here, Bard, because I know you have a lot more of the RP background than I think Fane and I do. Where Fane and I are more just kind of get in, get world first, and get out.
Yeah.
And so from like more of an RP standpoint, what do you need from storytelling within Ashes of Creation to feel like you've had an impact on the story as a player?
I think they're kind of already doing it in terms of how each server is going to be different, right? I think that's like you already feel impactful in terms of what I would say is each individual, like, and that's something people need to learn. Like this RPG isn't going to be like, you're the hero of the story. You go out and you're slaying, whatever. That's not this story. If you're going to be a solo player in this game, you're going to be, you're still, a magical being. You can do magical things. You can create awesome stuff, but you're not this hero. You're not following along with the story. The story itself is following along with everything that's happening in the world and being a part of it. Not being the main protagonist, but being a part of it. And so, like, whether that's your guild that has done something or another guild, like, if your server does something no other server has done, you're still a part of it. That's my server. You feel a part of it. You feel engaged and you feel compelled to listen and watch along. And that's the idea. I don't think they need to do anything different from what they've already said they're doing. I think
would there be too much disconnect for a new player coming in 6 months, a year later? Because I think if you're there, I totally agree with what you're saying. If you were there, if you were a part of it, right? Like, oh, we killed this raid boss, or we leveled up this node, it impacted the world this way. But how do you convey that to a new player? Because that's one of those things where it's like, good storytelling is about perception, or is how, I mean, in book terms, it's how the reader perceives the author and the words that they choose to use, and their own intellectual, their own intelligence, their own understanding of the words, the inflection they choose to read the words in. If the story has already been told, how do you convey good storytelling to a person who's coming into the game later?
I think that comes down to the content creators themselves, right? I think there will be people and content creators who tell the story of the server that they're going to join.
I think that's a way. I think that's a way, but I do think that Intrepid does need to do some. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be in I'm not saying that there needs to be a history lesson before they are able to log in and play their character. I think it's more along the lines of, I mean, in my head, having some kind of progressing storyline, and it does sound like that's what they're going for.
Yeah, they've already said they were going to do that.
Intrepid wants the overarching storyline, and then you have the server storyline, and then you have the world storyline, and then you have the your node storyline, then you have your guild storyline, and you have all of these different storylines that kind of play into it in and of itself. But I mean, again, I just go back to the question of, from a purely new player perspective, and taking content, because I don't think it purely rests on content creator. I think that is a way to give more detail. I mean, when I wanted to understand more WoW lore, I watched WoW lore content creators to get more understanding of the lore. But I made that decision for myself, and that was because there were gaps within the game of WoW that didn't give me the detail that I needed. And so when I jumped into WoW at Warlords of Draenor, I'm like, who the fuck is Gul'dan? Who's Archimonde? What the fuck is going on? Like, what is all this shit? And so I had to take it upon myself to go find it, and it's completely reasonable if the question is that I just need to do my own research.
So what I would say is, what you're getting at is, from a new player standpoint, on an initial launch and all that, the first few months of this game, they don't need to do anything. But the lore is written by itself.
Yeah.
What I would say is, as they release major patches and stuff, they do need to go back and change some of the old stuff to make sure it's all concurrent, right? Make sure that it all lines up. Like, so this quest that you're doing isn't something that's already been solved because the server's done this and killed this boss or what it is. And that is an interesting thing to talk about from a lore standpoint. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about giving lore reasons for game mechanics, right? So that's an interesting thing to talk about. But I guess that's kind of like what you're bringing up now. If the server history matters, then why are you doing this quest early on suddenly that has, like, that problem would have been solved by something that happened, later on? And you can explain it away by, like, well, just play the game through, play the game and play the servers and do the quest lines, and you'll eventually get up there and you'll learn some of the lore. And if you want to see more, you go out and seek more of it. But if you actually want this server to feel to a brand new player like they're discovering everything brand new, that's a whole different task to get involved in. And you have to basically, as I said, redo a lot of starter quests and leveling quests as the server progresses.
So, and I don't disagree with this. So it's more of it's more related to what we would experience in real life. If we want to know the history of the United States, if we want to know the history of Rome, if we want to know the history of Greece, if we want to know the history of Japan, like whatever it is, like we need to go, because we weren't there. We need to go and research that. We need to go look into that. Like if that's something that interests us, and I think that's a completely legitimate answer to that. Like I wasn't asking the question under the premise that there needed to be an answer that like Intrepid like does this. It was more, I was just kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit to see if we can get to a, if there was something Intrepid could do. And so I mean, I think that that's fine. I mean, you enter into a world and it's like, yeah, you're trying to figure out where I am. Yeah. Like,
No, I'm trying to figure out where passionate is. It should be learned from TCG flavor text. I was like, that one. Yes, that's perfect. It's over there on my screen.
One thing that was always super cool, and I mean, a little biased here because Superwife said it. But one thing that I always loved about Game of Thrones intro was that the map that they showed while they're, what's going on. Like,
wait, can you do that again real quick?
No, you can clip it and go fuck yourself. The map of like was relevant to what we were about to watch, or it was reflected of what happened in the previous episode. So like when the Boltons took Winterfell, like there was.
Are you spoiling this for me?
There was the flayed man flag instead of the direwolf.
I haven't watched this, bro.
And so when those things changed, like it was actually really cool. And so I don't know how you would incorporate something like that into Ashes, but I'm more just kind of like pointing out a nod to Game of Thrones where it was like that was a really cool, subtle, and very minute update into like the lay of the land. And they only ever showed they had only ever shown the towns and the settlements or whatever that were relevant for the episode coming up. And I thought that was really cool.
I think, I mean, that might be a cool way to do it. I know they have said...
Listen, if you haven't watched that shit by now, I've watched it 3 times already, all right?
I haven't watched it. I'm actually serious. I have not watched it.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying you have to have had watched
it. But I'm planning
on it, too.
What I'm saying is go fuck yourself if you think that you're not going to be spoiled by now.
Listen,
I just
subscribed to HBO right before this podcast.
Ready, Fane? Bard, you ready?
Ready.
The final season of Game of Thrones, based off of what you've seen on the internet, was it good or bad?
I've heard that it's bad.
Bard. You've already been spoiled. All right, get off my dick about this. Dumbledore dies. Darth Vader is Luke's father. And Suicide Squad is dog shit.
As long as Peter Dinklage is still alive, that's cool.
You know he grew up in my town?
Did he really?
Yeah.
Did he grow up, though?
He went to my high school.
Guys, welcome to Peter Dinklage Cast. We're switching this whole thing up. Let's go. 2 hours a week talking about Peter Dinklage. And all.
My mom was in a book club with his mom for a while.
So there's a series, totally off tangent. There's a series on Netflix called...
They're just going to glaze over what I said.
Well, of course we are. That was so fucked up.
Out of that, Super. It's not even coming back. There's a series called
Super. You realize how wrong that is, right? You can't joke about the disprivileged.
Yeah.
Whoa. I never said they were disprivileged. You said that. You said, now you're making little jokes. Now you're making little. Wow, you guys, listen. That's offensive. That's offensive. All right, listen. You can't be making fun of people like that. That's not okay.
I need a you were banned screen just so I can switch to it real quick.
Instead of wasted, it just says banned.
Just say we did cancel culture and just slide that right over Super's window right there. Like, we can still hear him, but we cancel cultured him. Don't worry, guys. We got him.
Oh, you guys got me off Twitter. You did it. Congratulations.
Unbelievable. How am I supposed to know what you feel 140 characters at a time?
Listen, I literally have a Twitter so I can retweet your tweet about the podcast starting.
Better than Zillin. God damn it. I'm going to get that guy a Twitter if it kills me. I'm going to make Zillin a Twitter and I'm going to start tweeting awful things to the point that he's like, no, it's fine. Just give it to me. And then I'm going to just tweet like really bad game opinions. I love that, by the way, guys. We done figured it out. We done figured it out.
All right. So who wants to make Super drink? Hydrate him.
Someone hydrate Super.
Listen, I'll just finish it. I'm not getting another one. So
Smart man. I have work. I haven't said that in 2 years. I have a little bit of work to do tomorrow.
You got to work on.
I have a road trip to do. I have a road trip to do tomorrow.
A friend that owns a restaurant, they just got their full liquor license, and so I am going down tomorrow morning to consult with them and create a cocktail menu and a bar program.
It sounds fun. Give me a call if you want to, some help.
Can you just send me Bart? I swear to God, send me a list and like an inventory sheet, right?
Oh,
I'll just drop that shit off, collect my $5,000, and split that shit with you.
Yo,
But
we need.
Do you want to? Because I literally have like
20
I have hundreds of cocktails that are made by me on a list.
We need to figure out. We talked
what do you
about,
want?
We talked about this, at the start of like at the inception of the show. We need to figure out Ash's cocktails.
Yeah.
For the
I
show.
think it's too early for that.
No, fuck it, do it. It's not too early. Screw you.
Okay.
Let's do it. And by let's do it, I mean you two do it because you two have been in the cocktail business, and I will just drink them.
I don't hate it. We should start making some Ashes. We need more lore because they have to tie into the lore. They all have to have punny names, like really bad names.
Do one right now based on dwarves. Go. The show's already off the rails. Go.
Cool. I've got one. Mead.
Wait. Mead.
No, it's got to be a mixed drink. It's got to be a cocktail.
Okay, so when I think of dwarves, I think like short people. They're often just kind of grumbly and always disagreeing. They've got big beards, so we're gonna call this the super.
The super. You're gonna call it the super. Is that where we're going with this?
I didn't say that. I was finishing my name, and you just interrupted out of nowhere.
Wow.
Show officially off the rails. Super got back to drinking.
Yeah, Super. I think you need another beverage there. There's nothing in that.
That's water. Also, there's
nothing in that.
You get Super a sippy cup.
What was that?
My vape juice.
Oh, gross. That'd be super gross.
I don't need to drink that.
Don't drink the vape juice.
Nope.
I mean,
Go ahead. Don't listen to me anymore. Just go. See, all right. I do want to point something out though, that this is probably the most like accurate representation of how our conversations go when we're talking till 4 a.m. Except I'm in the place of Bard right now.
Wait, you're not even what? Am I that coherent at 4 a.m? Shit.
Oh no. It was like 2 a.m.
There we go. 4 a.m. No, I'm done.
Yeah, 4 a.m. You've had no.
Dude, you're fine, Super. You're being self-conscious for no reason.
I'm not,
you're good.
No,
you're
I'm
good.
fine. I'll fucking derail. I'll derail and demonetize this shit right now. Let's go. Lay it on me.
Ooh.
Let's talk about politics. All right, let's go.
Go real deep. Real just.
I like this idea. I like this idea of cocktails. And I've been talking to my buddy in North Carolina, just opened a meadery. And they literally did their first batch like a week ago.
Bard's like, yeah, cocktails. Let's go back to cocktails. Fuck, cocktails.
I mean, I will talk about politics, but no one else does. You're just trying to be confrontational. He lives in Asheville. Yeah, my buddy's in Asheville. They just opened the Fey Meadery. He's big into Renaissance fairs and all that, and he dresses up as a Viking and he does his own blacksmithing and all that. And he decided he was going to open a meadery after making a bunch of money in computer science.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And they just did their first batch, and I was talking to him, like kind of like introduced him to the game. I believe he signed up under my reference code and all that. By the way,
shout out,
dude! Everyone here is already long signed up. Like,
I know,
yeah.
Like, and we love you guys all for hanging out with us. But what I was gonna say is like, so I was talking to Maggie the other day. I was like, we need a mead, a whiskey, like all labeled under the Ashes title. Not just like a cocktail, but the cocktail can be the start of it.
And they need to be canned cocktails from what I've heard you guys talking about.
That's how you ship them everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. I can do that. I know how to do that really well. Only spent 12 hours a day for the last like.
Dude, what if your distillery just turns into a fucking Intrepid distillery?
I mean,
I
it would be,
obviously your brother.
that would be going
has
straight down the
but-
Zillin route of just selling out.
Just selling right on out.
Yeah, but you're selling out to a better cause than Raid Shadow Legends.
Zillin's not listening.
I don't give a
Thankfully.
shit. I'm still gonna call him out on it. That's fucking hilarious.
No, what I would say is I don't think the entire place needs to be that. And I think that defeats the purpose. I don't think there should always be an Ashes of Creation mead or whiskey.
No, I think you want to be very careful with what you do when you brand things. You know,
I think a little bit here and there, a single release
Oh yeah, well,
for a certain event like the launch party.
Well, and it's like what we've talked about with like the TCG and first edition, right? It's like have, come out with a drink that you can buy a 6-pack can of, and it's like what Emerson is saying in chat, like the Burn Dunir. Like there's a good lore reference there, like, and you have something,
And
like
you
that,
get a 4-pack card pack that's special. And it only costs a Happy Meal. So people are literally going and buying hundreds of Happy Meals.
But that's literally how you get. I mean, and Pokemon's a prime example of that. I mean, look at about if Pokemon was only sold at Target, for example. Like, yeah, sure, all the Targets would be constantly, out of Pokemon stuff, but you get cross marketing, and you get, the reason why Walmart also wants to sell it is because then it gets that population in there to come and buy it, and then they buy other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do the other thing, you do the same thing with your IPs. If you have a TCG and you have like, your merchandising, we'll just go ahead and throw like the booze idea under the merchandising, like, and you kind of incorporate all those different things. I know you're kind of memeing a little bit, but yeah, like have a pack, like a unique pack come with the merchandise, like, and then you have all of that play into it, and then maybe there's a card within that unique pack that.
So here's the thing. I think it's a balance of selling out to merchandising and building a cohesive, engaging world. Things that people want because it makes them feel a part of the world versus I've just sold out.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just enjoy giving Zillin shit. I really don't care that he's sold out to, get that money. Like,
I care. I've told him last Wednesday when I was really drunk at 2 a.m. I gave him so much shit. It was funny. I tuned into a stream the next day. Literally in the first half an hour, he's just talking about me being really drunk the night before. I'm just like, Zillin, please stop. Please stop.
It's content though. Like if Zillin wanted to, he could make a video clipping all of the different people who have given him shit about Raid Shadow Legends, and then at the end of it and say this video has been sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. It would be fucking hilarious.
I agree. I mean, to me, it's as I said, I don't give that kind of shit to people I don't consider my friends anyway.
Oh yeah, no, it's that situation of where you chastise your friends more than people that you don't know. It's like if I'm not talking shit about you, it means I don't like you. Like if I wasn't giving Fane and Bard shit right now, it would mean I don't want to be here. Listen, take that shit off the fucking screen right now.
Sorry. All right. Well, we are coming to time here. We've only been derailed for the last 20 minutes.
30 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, this is what I always thought this podcast was going to be, like legitimate discussion for an hour, and then an hour of us just being like
off the rails.
Idiots.
I mean, we're not slurring. We're just having fun with each other.
Am I not?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's a compliment. I haven't had anything to drink in almost a month.
I don't know. I remember our first podcast where you're like, I'm drinking you guys under the table.
Yeah,
Yeah, but okay, it still requires
tough.
practice. It requires upkeep. All right,
Okay.
you know that. I know you know that. Don't even act like you don't. It requires upkeep.
I'm never not upkept, so
Exactly. I was gonna
I
say.
don't know. I don't know. It's been a while.
I was gonna say, stop drinking for a month and then talk to me. All right.
Hey, Fane's over this.
Yeah, it's you guys are going strong, and I appreciate that. But
Fane's like,
damn,
I'm editing videos right now. Like this shit's over.
I'm somewhere else mentally right now. I'm looking at the forums right now. I thought I was going to talk about like something they brought up in the forums, but they don't have any good questions this month. I'm over it.
Do we have?
What's up with them bringing back guild conversation again?
Well, the regular conversation is a guild conversation this time, and it's weird.
Well, but they had already talked about like what do you want out of a guild like within a game, like, and now we're talking about guild stuff again.
It's because they've been listening to us, and they know it's the most engaging topic possible right now for the regulars.
Yeah, I mean, it's important.
I mean,
right?
not trying to toot our own horn, but
we're all doing planning around it. At least with an Axiom, we're doing a lot of planning, and we can't figure out exactly what we need to plan for and what we don't because we don't know what's coming down the road. It just doesn't exist yet. We have no information or context around it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are at the end of the night, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the wrap up. Fuck you guys.
All right, sounds good.
So what I'm gonna need you guys to do is I need you to go over to It's Fane, and I need you to follow every single.
Get the shout outs ready.
It's Fane. You do them, Bard. Fuck you. You need to go over to itsfane.com and you need to click every single one of those things and you need to follow all of them. And if you don't, when I die, my bald redheaded face is going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
Also true.
If you don't do it, that's what's going to happen. If you want that, don't click any of the buttons. Sorry, Fane, you're not going to get any people to follow you because everybody wants me in the afterlife.
That's true.
I need you to hit the follow fucking button right now here on this channel with Bartik and exclamation point shout out Bartik in the chat. That's this. Where are you at? That's this fucking weak bearded motherfucker over here. And then I need you guys to go over to Super TCG and I need you to follow me. Though I literally put out no fucking content, I want you guys to go follow me right now. And if you don't, then Fane's gonna haunt you, and nobody wants that. Shout out Super Sucks. So the only shout out that actually matters is you guys need to go over to YouTube and you need to follow Two Guys in a Bard, and I need you guys to watch the shit out of every single video over there. I'm not even trolling right now. Let's get some massive rotation on those videos. Share it, comment, everything that you're supposed to do. Smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Just go over there and just fucking do it. All right.
Just do it, guys.
If you're still here and you haven't done it, why are you even still here? Just leave. Just leave.